Hey everyone, Adam with Droid Media here, and today we're going to be adding FLAIR to our thumbnails using some built-in functions in Photoshop. At some point or another, we've all had to create a thumbnail, whether it's for our own YouTube videos or we are offering them to clients as part of their videos that we just produced for them, or your blog or your website or whatever. Thumbnails and creating them are a common practice and one that you should probably do with every video that you produce. Now, producing them can be as simple as taking a still shot from the video itself that you shot in Adobe Premiere or in Final Cut and just uploading that. But we have the ability to make them a little bit better and make them more enticing. I mean, after all, this is like the first thing that a potential viewer or a potential client is going to see. So we want to really put our best foot forward. Now, this is an image that I took after a recent YouTube video that I created about my Sony a7S II cinema rig. And what I did here was, this is just a practical light off to the right. And for those of you who aren't filmmakers or video producers, a practical light is literally just a lamp. It's not a video light or anything like that. And it's nice and warm, so it gives me this nice kind of warmish backlight, a little bit of a edge light to separate it from the background on this side. And then over here, it's pretty dark, but I was shooting in RAW, so I knew that I could pull out some of this detail as long as I could see it a little bit. And then on the front face behind me and behind the camera where I was filming, I have a big window, so I get a little bit of blue kind of daylight in there. So this is how the image started out, and we are going to end up with something like this when we're all said and done. So let's go ahead and hop into this. I'm going to include a link to this below, so if you want to pause the video, download that, and use this and follow along, totally fine. If not, go ahead and find your own image and just kind of walk through and see how this works. So obviously the first thing we want to do is kind of boost up this exposure. You can see here we've got a lot of detail in this image, but we're starting to get a little grainy, so let's drop that down, maybe 1.5. Contrast, I'm going to drop that down too, so we get a little bit more detail that we're kind of seeing. And then highlights, I'm going to add a lens flare in here. I knew as soon as I took this photo that even though it was not as framed as well as I wanted it to with a lot of this space back here, that I was going to want a really bright light over here. And I didn't want to actually include the light in the image because I didn't want to have to Photoshop it out. So I included a little bit of the brightness, but let's go ahead and make that kind of bright. And we're not going to really lose any detail on the camera or the cage doing this, but we're going to make this nice and bright to kind of blend in with the lens flare that we're going to create. Shadows, I'll probably drop those down. Whites, you can adjust to whatever your liking is. I'm not really seeing a huge difference, but we'll boost those just a little bit. And then blacks, go ahead and boost those also. And you can see we want to do it just so we're not getting any grainy detail. We're starting to get a little grain in here. But then with clarity, you can make it nice and crisp and harsh. For this one, though, let's go ahead and make it a little softer. We don't want it too soft and dreamy, but we can kind of give it a nice soft little look. And this image is like 6,000 by 3,500 pixels. So by the end of this, we're going to have shrunk it down, and it's going to be nice and fairly crisp in the end. Saturation and everything you can kind of boost if you want, but I think it's probably pretty good where it's at. Go ahead and click Open Image. And again, this is all done in Photoshop. It's going to pop open in this image here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can adjust it. And the first thing we want to do is get rid of all of this dead space back here. I don't want any text back here. There's nothing I can do with that. So let's unlock this image. Go ahead and duplicate it. Click OK. Just hide that layer. We're going to move this over. You can hold Shift down so it moves perfectly horizontal. Find a nice kind of framed up spot so you can see we have about the same amount of space here as back here. And great, looks wonderful. And we're going to have kind of a bright spot here to give us a lot of good contrast and make this image a lot more dynamic. And it's going to kind of shine over the rest of the video, or the rest of the image rather. So we've got this here, but now we've got this thing. We can't. I'm not going to go in here and clone tool this. So I duplicated this layer. What we want to do, make sure that this one is selected down in your layers. Go up to Edit, down to Transform, and then flip horizontal. It's going to flip this top layer. You can see it immediately did that. Clicking it, hold Shift, move it over until we see that it's kind of snapped into place. You can see we've got this nice bright little area right here. Now, an issue that we immediately run into is that there is still some of the lens hood and the 15mm rods here. So what we can do is making sure we've got both layers selected. Go ahead and make those just a little bit bigger, and maybe drag it down a little bit and back over. And now we're left with, again, this nice kind of framed up version of the camera that's on this whole left-hand side, and then this nice bright area over here. So click out here, make sure we apply that transformation. And then for me, I'm fine just merging these layers. I know I'm not gonna wanna do anything else with this. So the first thing we wanna do is create this lens flare that'll give us the illusion of all this kind of bright light hitting it. So how we would do that is duplicate this layer, click OK. It doesn't really matter what these are named. We're only going to create like 4 or 5 layers here. And then up under filter, what we want to do is go to render lens flare. And this will pop open a little dialog window, and you can see this huge image is the one that we have here. We haven't cropped it or anything yet, and which is totally fine. What we want to do is center this bright lens flare light around the center of where we want it. And you can see there's a couple different kinds here. Use whatever you want. If you want some kind of anamorphic lens flares, you go kind of J.J. Abrams-y here, you could do that. I'm just going to use this 35mm prime. I actually shot this image, I think, with 35mm lens on my camera. And then adjust your brightness accordingly. We don't want this overdone. We don't want it way too bright, but we want it good and bright, because what we're going to do is actually adjust the blend mode on this and drop the opacity down a little bit so it looks pretty good. So right off the bat, this is nice. We got this cool lens flare here, kind of coming at the camera. And what we want to do for this one is we want to adjust the blend mode. Now it's a normal. You can look through all of these. They're really good. If you watched my light leaks video, I went through a couple of those, but lighten is really nice. And what that's going to do, we'll drop that opacity down too, is it's going to give us still the lens flare effect, and it's still nice and bright right here where we're going to have the text over, but it's not going to overdo it. Now, this already looks pretty good, but what we want to do is give this image a little more contrast, a little bit more of kind of a darkness and a lightness sort of a thing. So go ahead and create a new layer, select your gradient tool, go up here and make sure that you select this colored to transparent gradient. And I've got this is a nice like kind of dark blue, but not too dark blue. I don't want to lose it, but we're going to create a nice blue gradient back here that's going to add some depth to this. Now, this looks like crap, obviously, but what we're going to do is under this, we are going to color dodge. I think will probably work okay on this one. I'm not entirely sure I like that. Maybe just color and adjust that opacity down a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give us a little bit of blue light off to this back edge. Let me go back to color dodge and see. And if you want even more of a gradient, you can add that in. I really don't like that. We're going to go back down to color. Again, just this opacity. We don't want it overdone. It's going to look really cheesy. Just a little bit can go a long way when we're doing tutorials like this. So there we've got that. Now we're going to go ahead and create another tutorial and add even more of a kind of a yellowy orange up to this top. So up here, the top, make sure we select our color. And a nice like orange. That'll work. Like that. Obviously this looks like crap too. Let's go back down to color. Still looks like crap. So let's adjust that opacity way down. Again, just give it a little pop of color off to this right-hand edge. Same with this one. Now, we're already looking pretty good. We've gone from this to this, and it's already a little bit more of a dynamic image to look at. So let's go ahead and get our text in there, and then we can wrap this up. Create. Now, I'm just doing this based off of the actual thumbnail I created for my video last week. So we've got this positioned up here. Again, we've got all this space to play with too. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna create that. This is aligned left, and it's not quite black. It's like a dark gray. And I really like that imagery. So like with all of this stuff, what I want to do is go ahead and create 2 text layers. Now, I do this because I like to layer stuff in and have different blend modes to them. So this top one, what we're going to do is make sure that it is, I think linear light is the one I like at the top. And then we're going to drop the opacity down just a little bit. And you'll see this as soon as we get to this bottom one. Now we've got linear light, and now we want to do vivid light for this bottom one. And you can see that lens flare has kind of shown through on this. So you can adjust these two accordingly. But what that does is it gives the illusion that this light is just so bright that it's even shining through the text. Now, we could be done with this, and this would look amazing. This would look great. Did look great. I used it for my thumbnail itself. If you wanted to do something a little bit more, what you could do is bring in a light leak. I created a bunch of light leaks for another video I did a while back, and you could add just a little bit more depth to it. I've got this one that's got some cool blues in it, and we can make that big and do that. I actually want this big spot down below, so with this selected, I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, Vertically. It's got this like nice kind of bluish area down here, and this clearly is just black with a light leak there, so it's not looking great. We're going to go to, I don't know, we'll try overlay at first. Ooh, not having that. Maybe lighten. And, we've got kind of this light leak that covers up our camera, though. That's just not what I want. So drop this like way down. And you can see, even if we had a little bit there, gives us just a little bit more of kind of a dynamic little spot down in this corner with a little bit more of this light leak. So we got this light leak up here. Maybe it's creating this kind of lens flare over there. So this is almost exactly what I did to create this thumbnail. Now, again, this is all super subjective, and you can go overboard real easy when doing this. But try this out, and the next time you're making a thumbnail, use some of these built-in functions to add some light and contrast and depth to your thumbnails. This is the first thing people are going to see when they are browsing for your videos or searching for your videos online. And a good thumbnail can make or break views on your video, and can really help people click on it, get new subscribers, new viewers, things like that. So go ahead and try that out. Last thing you want to do before you export this for YouTube, make sure that it is the right size. I don't think YouTube accepts anything above like 1280 by 720 right now. So there you go. Custom thumbnails in Photoshop in, I don't know, like 10 minutes or so. Pretty easy. Go ahead and try this out next time you're doing a thumbnail. Let me know how it goes. Thank you for sticking around to watch this tutorial. If you have any questions about this or want to see any other tutorials, let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, click like. If you want to subscribe and stay up to date on content like this, click subscribe. And find Droid Media all over the rest of the internet. So websites, social media, all that stuff. I'll link those down below as well. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.